Google is rumoured to be developing an Android video games console. Some say it's an early move to combat similar devices that rival Apple might bring out in the future. Well, earlier on, I caught up with Stuart Miles from tech website Pocketlint to get his thoughts on the news. Stuart, Sony and Microsoft have recently both launched their new versions of the PlayStation and Xbox consoles. There was a lot of hype around that. I wonder, is Google jumping on the bandwagon a bit here?
I think the Sony, Microsoft, the traditional look of a games console, which is sort of £350 to £429, whatever, is very different from the offering that Google would sort of come up with. Google will probably come in with a very cheap sort of £100 device to play games and app games in that space, rather than the sort of full-powered adrenaline blockbusters that we get on a traditional game console.
Why would Google aim towards a different market with a cheaper console, do you think?
I think if you look at what Google offer already through the Play Store, a lot of games work for your phones, a lot of games work for your tablets, and it'd be nice for some people to be able to play those on your television, enjoy it on the biggest screen you have in your house. So if you've got a console, if you've already invested in games through the Android platform, putting them onto a box that sits onto your TV is a no-brainer for most people.
You mentioned there Android games. It was only last year that I was interviewing gaming experts about the potential death of the console due to the popularity of smartphone and tablet gaming. But if these rumours are anything to go by, and speculation that Apple could also bring out a console, it seems like the hardware is certainly here to stay.
I think what you're seeing at the moment is a real sort of hotbed of excitement within the Android console community already. And if you look at what's happening, you've got this device called Ouya, which is about £80, which is due out shortly. You've got GameStick, which is a Kickstarter-funded project, which is due out later in the year. Even NVIDIA, who normally make graphics cards and chips for computers and for traditional desktops, have got Project Shield, which is due out in July in the US. So there's quite a lot going on, but what I find fascinating is that these companies themselves are quite niche. They're quite small, they don't have huge amounts of backing to be able to really pow into this sort of space. And obviously that's not the case with Google. It'd be very easy for them, whether they are or not going to launch a games console, to do something, and if it doesn't work, not really worry about how much money they waste on the project.
Now, Stuart, in the original Wall Street Journal article which talks about this console, there's also speculation that Google's working on a wristwatch powered by Android. What more do you know about that?
So again, from a wristwatch perspective, there's quite a lot of people that are trying to get into this. Kickstarted by a Kickstarter-funded project called Pebble. You're now seeing other options. You've got the Motorola Active, which is obviously made by Motorola, which is owned by Google. Sony announced their smartwatch this week. There's lots of others in the pipeline as well that run on Android. It's, again, lots of people trying to get into the wearables section, which is hugely sort of hot as a topic at the moment. And again, if Google were to get into it, it wouldn't be a surprise. They've got lots of resources available to them, and not the need, more importantly, for it to be a huge success from day one.
How do you think the console and the wristwatch would fare in the market?
So I think the console depends on whether people want to play these sort of relaxing, touchable, casual games on their TV, and whether they get used to it. The reason we like playing them on our phones and tablets is because they're on our phones and tablets, and it doesn't match in any way, shape or form to the adrenaline-based games of the Xbox One or the PS4. So I think there is a sort of sense that they'll be popular, but not as hugely popular as the main consoles. I think for watches, there is a real sense that if manufacturers get it right, and it's not to the Dick Tracy era of, talking to your phone, then I think there is a potential for them to be the must-have accessory for any mobile device.
Finally, Stuart, Google's new version of Android, released this autumn, is said to be tailored to lower-cost smartphones more prevalent in developing countries. Now, given that, plus the possibility that these console rumours could be true, is Google well on its way to securing an even greater global market share?
I think one of the growth areas obviously is the emerging markets. It's the BRIC countries. A lot of us in what we call developed countries like the UK and US already have a phone. We're probably onto our second phone. So from that point of view, there are a lot more people that don't have a phone or need a phone elsewhere. Windows Phone, for example, has done very well at trying to market towards the Indian nations, the Chinese, the people that don't necessarily have a phone yet to become their first smartphone. Android is fantastic on the flagship devices, but once you start getting to smaller, cheaper, less powerful devices, it does start to struggle. So anything that enhances or makes the code more efficient has got to be welcomed by many manufacturers who are keen to offer lower handsets.
OK, Stuart, well, Google is yet to comment on the console and wristwatch rumours. But for now, thanks for joining us.